Hey everybody, my name is Michael Whittaker. Thanks for joining me in this video. Have you ever wondered in film and TV music, especially you hear in movies, chords that really move you, but you're not quite sure what they are? They're not like major or minor or the typical chords you would find in pop music. You would find them in 20th century music from like Ravel or Stravinsky, and sometimes it just seems overwhelmingly sophisticated and like, how am I ever supposed to learn that? Well, at Scorecraft Academy, we teach harmony in a way that helps you get outside of just the regular stock major and minor chords that you're used to. And even though you're going to use those, we have something we teach called the state harmonic system, which sounds fancy, but it's basically a way to create emotion with different chords and shapes than you're typically used to. And in today's lesson, I want to teach you about what we call the leading state. The leading state is a state that can be used for wonderment, imagination. It's a state that where the character is not happy or sad. It's kind of in limbo, like what's going to happen? I'm not sure. So this chordal structure is based on, it pulls from the major mode, it also pulls from the Lydian mode, and it also is going to pull from the whole tone scale. And I'll show you some uses and the beginnings of its uses in film and TV music, and I think it's really going to help you to expand your mind and open up a new window of understanding of chordal harmony. All right, let's get started. All right, to begin to understand what this concept is, you have to understand the whole tone scale, which most of you probably already understand, but for beginners, let me go over it. Real quickly, a whole tone scale is made up of just all whole steps. And there's really only two that we find in music because they repeat themselves. And unlike major scales and minor scales, once you do them a half step away from each other, they're going to repeat themselves. So let me show you that. First of all, it's all whole steps. So whole steps, this is the smallest interval in music, a half step, the shortest space between two notes here in Western music. So let's go 2 half steps, and that's what you get a whole step. So whole step, whole step, whole step, whole step, whole step, whole step. And then the next one starts a half step up on C sharp or D flat. All right. So again, and again, they're all whole steps. So if you count 2 half steps, 1, 2, you'll find your next note. And then 1, 2, your next note. 1, 2, there's your next note. And as you can see, if we were to try again here on the next note up, starting on D, well, that's the same one as C. And because they're mathematically equidistant, it's going to be the same scale. Now, the whole tone scale is really interesting, and in film and TV music, we really know this for flashbacks, for memory flashbacks. So we hear this a lot, and it's like, remember when back I was a kid, and they do this whole tone scale arpeggio a lot of times with a harp. You'll see, oh, we're back in the Civil War, or so you'll hear all these arpeggiated patterns with just the whole tone scale. All that is playing a bunch of notes on the whole tone scale, right? All right, so we understand the whole tone scale. Within the whole tone scale, it's interesting. If you start here, you can get augmented triads up and down the whole tone scale. So you get root third and a raised fifth. So here's a major triad, C. All you do is raise the fifth, and you have an augmented chord. Well, it just so happens that the whole tone scale has all augmented triads as you go up. Okay, same with the secondary whole tone scale, which is, again, just starts a half step higher. So there's really only two. All right, so whatever note you find yourself on, you can create one of those two whole tone scales. And that in itself can get the sense of time, right? Like, so something is going on in time, right? So a lot of times a whole tone scale will give us a sense of time, of, time is passing, maybe just playing in the same whole tone scale, two different of those shapes of those augmented triads can give you, for example, I'm just going to go grab two different ones and let's do this. So it can also be kind of spooky or creepy, right? So that's really not, even though that's a cool little lesson in itself, that's not what we're aiming at here. We are aiming at what we want to call the leading shape. The leading shape is found inside the whole tone scale, and it's also found in the major scale and the Lydian mode, right? The major mode and the Lydian mode. So here's the leading shape. It has a diminished fifth. So if this was a major triad, we just diminish the fifth. And we have this shape going up and down these whole tone scales. Yeah. So we go up and down with this shape. And this shape and this scale is the basis of a lot of harmony that we can do that pertains to different emotions that characters will have, okay? And we're going to demonstrate that, and you're going to really hear the power of it and how this chord can transform into other chords and transform from one emotion to the next. But by itself, this chord, this major chord, we call this grounded. Even this minor chord, it's grounded. It may be sad, but it's a solid emotion. This, it's like a little mysterious. We don't know what that emotion is, right? Same with the augmented chord. Really, all music at its core is a level of grounded to ungroundedness. So a major triad is very grounded, but as soon as we start adding other notes to it, we start to create a sense of uncertainty in the music. All right, so I'm going to show you now these leading shapes and how they're used inside of film and TV music. And these are just a fraction of what we go over in the course, but this will open your mind to a really cool way to address when a character is not in a grounded state, when it's not, when what's going on screen is not certain, right? Because film scoring is not just MIDI mock-ups. It's not just writing a cool, pretty harmony. That's part of it. But film scoring is connecting the audience to a character's emotion via music. So there are rules and there are, so built-in structures and harmony that really can work in different situations. So let's get into this one, into these leading shapes. And I think you're really going to learn a lot about how to use this and use this to transition from one emotion, an emotional state, to the next. All right, so within the major mode and the major scale, which you probably know is all the white notes on the piano, we have this leading shape uh, that falls on the fourth scale degree or on F, right? So here's our major scale. And so if we start on F, we get this leading shape, the same shape that came out of this whole tone scale, right? So, and it's also a part of the Lydian scale. So F to F is a Lydian scale, and it basically has a whole step instead of a half step between the third and the fourth scale degree. So in C major, between the third scale degree and the fourth is a half step, but in Lydian, between the third and the fourth scale degree is a whole step. So that gives a sense of kind of wonderment, of leading. So we can use this just like this. And let's just move around the whole tone scale and listen to it with a string patch, and you'll get the sense of imagination. Something is going to happen. Right? So that in itself, just moving this shape up and down the whole tone scale will give you a really cool kind of mysterious effect. Now, if we start with any major triad in our composition, going to this shape, all you have to do is move the fifth down. And that creates some instability in the emotion. So character is happy. Uh-oh, what just happened? Something happened, right? So any major triad, notice I'm descending here. So there's a nice pattern, and we can come up with patterns with these, right? So this is just descending major triads. So as I hit the leading tone or the diminished fifth, that becomes the fifth of my next major chord, which is a B, which is a half step lower. And then take that B, the fifth, and lower it a half step, and that becomes the fifth of a B flat. So this could be really nice in kind of a whimsical character, you know. As things are descending or melting even. Really good, use for that sort of emotion. All right. So we can also just throw key out the window, and let's just use that same phrasing. And just pick a note. Let's go to F sharp. A. D. Nice, right? It really doesn't matter where it goes. You can move all over outside of key and mode and just use this little phrase. And film scoring is a lot about getting outside of, oh, I have to write this melody and it has to be in the key. No, it's about the emotions, about connecting the audience to a character through emotion. So we can also use nice patterns, like let's use major thirds, which are also in the whole tone scale. So, but we'll use these major triad. I think I moved that around, but so really good kind of magical moment. All right, let's take the same thing and let's use it in the minor mode, and let's see how we can change from happy to sad, right? Or from sad to, we're in a sad emotional state. We want to go to a leading emotional state. Leading just meaning we're not sure what's going to happen, right? So let's take a major triad or minor triad, C minor, right? Your C minor triad, pretty simple. And let's go down a half step on the C. And now we're in our leading pattern. So we could certainly, because the leading pattern is based on this major triad. But if we want to get there, we can go down a half step. And now we're in leading, see that? And now we can use that fifth as our new minor triad. So here's our descending pattern again. Now B flat minor. There's our leading tone again. And now the fifth is going to be, or the top note of our leading pattern is going to be the fifth of a minor triad, which is A flat minor. So this is really good for it's sad or it's dark. And we can even, if we raise that leading tone up, we can suddenly become happy. So let's use that same descending pattern. Something changes and we get some hope. So we change the emotion, again, connecting the character with the emotion. All right, now let's take a look at that same shape. And as you notice this shape, what's interesting about it is it has this second right here at the two top notes here. We have a major triad, but then we have a major second here, which just so happens to be the two notes that you would get when you have any dominant 7 chord or minor 7 chord between the 7 and the root. So we can now start to extrapolate this, and we can this can suddenly become a we can move down a whole step from our low note here, and this can become a dominant 7, and then so we can resolve these things when something happens with a character and they're like, something happened and I need to resolve the conflict. It becomes a dominant 7, and the scene has resolution. Or maybe it becomes sad, but we want to resolve to a grounded sad state. Nice. So again, that's leading state. Taking this leading shape, go down a whole step from the root. That's going to be the third of our dominant 7 chord, which is going to be a tritone away. And then that's going to be the 5 of a new key. Interesting, right? And what's also interesting, we can also use this as we have this shape right here. If we change the root, it will change the chordal, the feeling of this chord. So right now, this is ripe for a D dominant 7 chord. Because we have the third, we have a second, but we have the seventh of a D dominant 7 chord. So these can become dominant 7 chords if we change the root, right? So the root's going to be, if you want to make it a dominant 7, you take your leading shape and you go up a whole step from the root of the chord, and you'll find the root note that's going to be your dominant 7 chord. So it's going to be D dominant 7. And then we can resolve it up a 4th or down a 5th to, right? Or to minor. Or, so that's just D7 to G. Or we can also do a false cadence or deceptive cadence, where we instead of going to G where you think it's going to go, we could change to another chord. So we can move the harmony around from there. That's getting a little outside of this lesson, but there's so many places you can go with this. And it's, you know how we pick the chords? We always pick the chords based on what's going on screen, right? So the screen, the character, the story dictates what you're going to write. But the chords in themselves have so much power if you understand how they can work and move and can get us from emotion to emotion. Sometimes we have to change emotions instantly, especially in like cartoon music, where it's like, somebody falls and it's bad, and then there's something funny. We want to answer funny. We have to know how to get around and change things quickly, emotionally speaking. All right? All right, now let's take a look at some leading resolutions, some common leading resolutions where this leading shape will resolve upwards instead of just to, like, this is a perfectly good resolution from leading to happy, but there's other resolutions there's many other resolutions that will take us to lift us even more. And here's the first one is going to be this, where the upper note of the leading shape moves up a half step, and instead of a major triad, it's going to become the third of a new triad. So from this F sharp to G, G is the third of an E flat major. And so that really gives us a different emotional state. So and we can even create a leading state on that as well. So there's a common one, right? So let's do it on another note. Let's do it on E. Here's an E chord. So here's our leading state. Remember, this is going to move up a half step from A sharp to B, and a lot of times when it does this, we'll hear this Lydian leading shape below it, right? All right, there's one. Here's the other one. When you go up, but instead of going up to an E flat major, this becomes a third of a minor triad. So it's going to become E minor. So we've gone leading to kind of sad. All right. Now let's look at common tone resolutions. Common tone means that we're going to keep this top note and make it the note of a new chord. Now, there are tons of them here. You can explore this yourself, but let me show you a couple right off the bat. Here's our shape, and our top note is an F sharp. Let's make it the third of a D. Right? So a different kind of a feel. Now let's make it the top note, the third of a B, or the fifth of a B minor. So we have the leading shape, we have an F sharp in top, it's going to become the fifth of a B minor. Not as strong as going, that's like that's like a new, something new happens, a new emotion. This is a change, but we haven't quite resolved yet. It's like we're sad, whereas this moving up, we've resolved to sad, or we've moved to a new emotion. So this is a really powerful tool to move from one state or one emotional state to another. All right, let's look at the same thing real quickly with changing alternate root notes and what you can get. Now we're going to change alternate root notes based on, remember this came from the whole tone scale, right? So if we start changing the root notes using the whole tone scale that it comes from, boy, we get some really interesting emotions, don't we? So first of all, we already talked about this. The D, dominant, it can become a dominant by using the second scale degree of the C whole tone scale. How about E7 sharp 5 by moving it to E? Right? It has the ninth in the top. We get that. Ooh, that's a cool chord. Let's move it to F sharp 7, and it's going to have an 11 in it. So that means it's going to have the sound of the Lydian mode in there. And then A flat gives us A7 flat sharp 5, and we could go on. We can also use this as part of an F sharp 7 flat 9. And we can keep this top note, and we can use all kinds of chords depending on the emotion we want. So really powerful tool. All right, we've talked about this in just using it slow, but really we can use it in all kinds of music. It's not just slow moving passages. I want to show you really quick using Symphobia how we can do this in something that would be action music, that would be maybe in a cartoon animated type thing. It works really good. All right, here's a big stacked sound from Symphobia. And again, we have this kind of major 7 flat 5, and we're only going to use the whole tone scale here. Right? So you can get something like this. All right, so there's one thing. All I was using is that shape, moving it around and breaking it up, Right? That's just using that shape. Really powerful, right? Because it doesn't feel resolved like, it's like, something's happening. We even hear it. Remember The Simpsons? That's that leading shape. That's exactly what we're talking about. So anytime you get to a major triad, jumping to that leading shape will get you the sense of that you're not grounded. You're like, And there's really two scales you can use underneath it, which is really interesting. So right here, this is our shape, right? And we can either use a whole tone scale, right? All that is. And you can move up and down with this to get some unusual color. But we can also use a Lydian scale, which looks like this. So here's C. It's the same as F to F. And all you need to know all these modes is a major scale. It just starts on a different scale degree. So the Lydian mode scale in the key of C for C is the same as a G major scale, but starting on C. So if I play a G major scale under this shape, in other words, if I take this shape and I go down a fourth and I play that, in this case it's G, I play a major scale underneath it, we'll get this Lydian kind of sound instead of the whole tone sound, which sounds like this. Right? I love it. It's so much fun. All right, now that we've had an overview of what this leading concept is, let's use it in a real-world application. I went ahead and created a kind of a romantic comedy MIDI mock-up composition that can kind of help you hear how it could be used in the real world. All right, let's talk after we take a listen to this. And every time we use that leading shape, I'm going to put LEAD on the screen and check it out. All right, that was fun to make, and I hope you got a lot out of this lesson. You know, I have a 5-month film scoring program for those of you who want to go deeper in harmony and really want to study how music works with film and television. It's a 5-month program. You work with me personally, and you can find out all about it at scorecraftacademy.com. We'll see you on the next video.